Welcome to the Dare to Grow Show. I'm Sarah Morgan, and my mission is to help you take daily action in your business, show up consistently and confidently for your audience, and earn more with digital products and programs. I know you have a rad vision for your life and business, but do you dare to grow? Let's jump into this episode and talk about how to make it happen. Welcome to episode 77. I have a question for you this week. Think about an upcoming project, like a launch. Maybe you're creating a new product. Maybe there's that one thing that you know you should be doing, but you just can't get yourself on track and taking action. What would it look like if that was easy? What would it look like if it took less time, less energy, less money, resources, less platforms or apps? My podcast is actually a great example of this. When someone asked me a few years ago if I would ever consider doing a podcast, I was like, no, that seems like so much work, because it can be. I was looking at other podcasts and thinking about having to find and schedule guests and having to batch episodes in advance, having to come up with questions and improve my interview skills. I'd never interviewed anyone before at all. Having to create transcripts, having to edit an hour of audio, listening to myself. Ugh. All of that sounded like so much work, and I really didn't consider doing a podcast at all until I listened to an episode of Amanda Francis's podcast. And it was nothing like the other podcast I had listened to. She didn't have an intro. It wasn't an hour long. There were no guests. It was literally her doing like a 5 or 10 minute meditation. And she sounded like she just hit play and started doing the meditation, and then that was it. And having consumed some of her content before, there's a really good chance that that audio came from something else, like a video or a course or an Instagram post. I realized I didn't have to create a podcast in the way other people were creating their podcasts. Even if a whole bunch of really popular podcasts were all doing the same things, doesn't mean I have to do it. There are no rules. And thinking that I had to do all of those things in order to create a podcast or in order to have a successful podcast was actually holding me back from something that could be really beneficial for my audience. And so that little idea of maybe doing a podcast kind of planted itself in my brain. And the more I thought about it, the more it sounded like a good idea. And so I decided to do solo episodes, make them as long or as short as they needed to be. Some of my episodes are 5 minutes long. Some of them are 35 minutes long. And then once I got my podcast up and running, I started looking at my process for creating the episodes. One of the biggest chunks of time I was dedicating was sitting down and writing the episodes like I was writing a blog post. And this actually made creating the blog post version of the podcast really simple, because I was just copying and pasting that script into WordPress. But the actual creation part was taking me 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours. And I knew I didn't want to be spending that much time on writing a podcast script. The thing with building a business online is that there are so many options. And while it can make things easier, often it just makes moving forward and making decisions more challenging, because you're watching this expert and that expert and that expert, and they're all doing completely different things. So here's what I figured out. I create a podcast document in Google Docs, and then I open it on my phone, hit the little edit button, and then I hit the microphone and I just talk through the episode as Google types it out. Works so much better. And instead of taking hours, I can write an entire episode in like 20 minutes. The other thing you probably noticed is that I recently started doing panel episodes because I wanted to include other voices, because I am not the be-all, end-all marketing expert, and I am not the be-all, end-all online business expert. And so I wanted to include other entrepreneurs and small business owners to share their experiences and what's been working for them. But I still didn't want to do one-on-one interviews or group interviews or anything like that. So at some point a few months ago, I heard the podcast from Band of Weirdos which is awesome if you are a creator, maker, artist. And the host, JC, was including audio answers from other people in her episode. So she would ask a question, and then you would hear the audio from another person answering that question. And I thought, this is how I can include more voices in my podcast without straining my little introvert self by doing interviews. And at some point, maybe I will start doing interviews. But for now, running my podcast this way means that I can do everything else in my business and everything else in my life and still show up with a weekly episode almost every week. So that's what I want to talk about. That was a really, really long intro to say that we need to talk about what things you're already doing that you can make easier, or what things you want to do, products, launches, business changes, marketing changes, so that you're not procrastinating and putting things off, or going for it and then hating every minute because it's so complicated. So 2 people instilled this lesson in me. Number 1 is Katie Lee. She is someone that I met through a mutual business friend. We went on a couple mastermind retreats together, and then I hired her to do some life coaching for me. And one of the first things she said to me, because I tend to be a perfectionist, I want to do all the things for every project, and I want to get it all right and get all my ducks in a row before I proceed, which means I was holding myself back from a lot of stuff. And so she said to me, what would this look like if it was easy? What would it look like to do the next thing or get to the next level? And what is the easy version of that? And I still ask myself this question years later in every aspect of my business and my life, everything I do, anytime I feel resistance or procrastination. Or if I get into the middle of a project and I'm like, oh, this is awful, this is taking so much time. How do we make this easier? What if I get out of the box of what I think I should be doing or what I think it should look like and figure out the easy version of it? And easy doesn't always mean it's simple or basic or not enough. Easy means you hit the launch button and people are using it, they're consuming it, they're paying you for it. The other thing about the easy version is that it allows you to hit publish, hit launch, get feedback, and then when you do the next version and the version after that, you're able to make some improvements. This is what I call the fine, better, best method, because you can't really get to the best version on round 1 or with version 1. There will always be improvements to make. So the other person I have to shout out for the fine, better, best method is Brett Copes. And I met Brett while taking rigging workshops while I was working and teaching aerial silks. You're going to have to scroll back my Instagram if you missed that whole portion of my life. But his thing was always that, yes, best case scenario, we're rigging the perfect height with steel carabiners and load-bearing beam. That means that beam is holding up a significant portion of the building, and the whole building would have to fall down before you would fall out of the air. So the question always is, what is the fine, better, or best version of that? Because you don't always have access to that one structural beam. Does that mean you're bringing in a freestanding rig? Does it mean you're using a beam clamp on a different beam? Now, of course, all of the circus stuff doesn't actually matter, but it's an example of looking at the situation and figuring out the best possible way to do it, even if the solution isn't the best possible way. Maybe it's just the fine way. You still probably will not fall out of the air and crack your head open if your rigging is fine, but there will always be a better version and a best version. And when I think about this in regards to business and marketing, video is probably the number 1 task that people hold back on because they can't come out of the gate with that best version. They're watching other people on YouTube with like graphics and cool transitions, or they're watching crazy reels editing and the voiceovers are so perfect, or they're watching someone live who's just like speaking off the cuff so eloquently and they never screw up or never lose their train of thought. And they're thinking, yeah, I want to do that, but I don't have the right lights or the right background. I don't know how to edit like that. I'm just in my apartment, so it doesn't look that cool. And I feel awkward when I speak, and I don't really know exactly what I need to be talking about. And I don't like the way that I look. And every time I pitch my stuff, I feel so salesy and icky. And so they're holding back on something that would really benefit their audience and really grow their business because of all those little things they can't get right. Now, going all in and doing the whole shebang and getting the best version is awesome if you have the time and the energy, the money, the experience, the help to go full on. But don't not go for it because you don't have all of those pieces of the puzzle yet. You might not actually need all of them. So if the inability to add in all of those things is making you put it off, then you need to change the process, change the goal, or figure out the easiest way to take a step forward. So if you've been thinking about doing video, what is the easiest version of this that you can do today or this week or this weekend? Is it going live? Just going for it? Is it recording a 2-minute video and posting it to your Instagram feed? Maybe it's going live or posting in a Facebook group where you already know everyone, or hopping on stories and only talking to your audience for 30 seconds. There are so many options for everything, so there was always a fine, better, best version that will allow you to get started. And we were actually having a conversation in the Essentials last week on our coaching call, and one of the members was talking about doing a launch and how she was really stalling and procrastinating. And we were kind of talking about like emails and what if you launch this way or what if you do that? And it turned out, as we went through this conversation, that she didn't really want to do a launch. And so she decided to just email some past clients that had already shown interest in the program and do like an easy non-launch launch for her product. And obviously, it doesn't mean that she can't do the better or the best version in the future. In a few weeks or a few months, she might have the time and the energy to do a full-on huge launch. But for now, she can do that really easy, fine version and just get it going. When we think of this stuff in terms of ourselves, we add so much pressure and so much extra work to try and come out of the gate with all the bells and whistles. We're trying to do all the bells and whistles when we don't have the time or the space in our lives, especially right now. Just figuring out how to do life in 2021 is challenging. And I'm over here with no kids. It's just me and the dog, me and Hazel. So I know that a lot of you are struggle bussing it through this year. So if you can't do the better or best version today, what's the easy version you can do to just get going? It's totally okay to do the fine version now, the easy version now, and then do the better version, and then get yourself to the best version, which once you get there, you will realize that you never hit the best version because you always realize there's something that you can change or adjust. That's so fun. But don't hold back now because you believe that only the best version will work. Because total truth, in writing this script, I was sitting on the couch Sunday afternoon in my PJs with a blanket on me. Hazel was walking around squeaking this toy. I bought her the most annoying toy, and she's just squeaking it over and over again. And I'm literally just talking into my cell phone to make this episode. But if I didn't tell you that, you wouldn't know. And now recording it, I am literally sitting on the floor in my closet with my microphone and my laptop sitting on a box, which should probably go into my storage unit, but I need it for my podcast setup. So everyone is somewhere in the fine, better version as they're creating stuff, but the output always looks like the best version. And so we watch that and we think, well, I don't have all of that, or I can't do all of that. So I'm just going to stall. I'm just going to put it off until I magically have those abilities and all of those things. It doesn't work like that. A lot of the people that you are seeing creating and showing up consistently are just winging it. They're just throwing shit together, which means you can do it too. So take a minute today, Make yourself a list of tasks or projects or partnerships that you would love to work on. And then under each, I want you to list out all of the things that you think you need, all of the reasons you can't do it yet, and see if there is an easier way for you to get going. You can do it. I have so much faith. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this was helpful. If you want to share what you've got coming up, what you've been procrastinating a little bit, and get some ideas for working out the easiest version that you can start with, hop over to Instagram, find me at XO Sarah Morgan, and look for the episode 77 post. I would love to hear from you. All right. I will talk to you again next week. Oh, and one more thing before I go. If you have more questions on what we talked about today, you want templates, trainings, or some accountability to make that shit happen, head over to xosarah.com/essentials and become a member of The Essentials. You will get instant access to the courses, coaching calls, and community. And this way I can help you simplify your marketing, show up with confidence, and dare to grow every single day.